Hello, welcome back. What difference 2 hours makes. If you're watching, you will know. If you've been watching us this morning, you'll know we said we were going to do an emergency podcast. I'm here with Dave Murphy. Before we get into it, I'll read the statement. Obviously, what we're talking about. Erik Ten Hag has left his role as Manchester United men's first team manager. The club announced around 10 minutes ago in a statement on the club website. Erik Ten Hag has been sacked as Manchester United manager following the defeat to West Ham yesterday. So yeah, the club statement goes: Erik Ten Hag has left his role as Manchester United men's first team manager. Erik was appointed in April 2022 and led the club to 2 domestic trophies, winning the Carabao Cup in 23 and the FA Cup in 2024. We are grateful to Erik for everything he has done during his time with us and wish him well for the future. Ruud van Nistelrooy will take charge of the team as interim head coach, supported by the current coaching team, whilst the permanent head coach is recruited. Comments: Rory, emergency live quicker than anticipated. Yes. Johnny, hi boy. Good to see you again, my friend. Rudin, excited. Josh, that was a quick turnaround. Yep, we're straight back on. Dave, Erik Ten Hag sacked as Manchester United manager. What is your immediate reaction?
I mean, I think it's a disgraceful decision, if I'm being honest. I mean, it was inevitable. I just, as we said earlier on, this was coming, and my hope was that it was going to be. We didn't drag it on. Like I said, it was holding on to him was never going to be the right decision. We talked earlier on about the whole Van Hal situation that I dragged on for 3 or 4 months too long. This was going to come to a head, and it shows that Ineos are not afraid to make these decisions, even if they don't have the right manager to bring in right away. As I said earlier on, hold off till the summer, and get who you want to get in. But am I a little bit shocked? I'm probably not. I mean, I think this should have happened after the Spurs game. I think he was cooked at that point. But I'm not surprised to see the manager getting sacked. It's not something you take joy out of, because, like I said, I was a massive Ten Hag in all those years. It's nearly 3 years now. I thought he was the best around at that time. It just hasn't worked. And for it's not 100% his fault all the way. There has been circumstances that have been beyond his control with injuries and stuff like that. But in football management and football clubs and professional football and any type of sport, one person ultimately holds all the weight of responsibility, and that's the manager. And he just couldn't get this team to perform. And this was inevitable. I am a little bit surprised it happened right now. Because I thought he would have fired him straight after Spurs. I didn't think losing to West Ham was going to lose him his job. But as Johnny said, Manchester Ineos have showed that they're strong, and I think this is. If we're going to take anything out of it, it maybe is a good sign that these guys are going to be ruthless. They are going to be ruthless. If you roll up to Manchester United and you don't perform, you're gone. Hopefully, they're just as ruthless with some of these players moving forward, because over the next 24 hours, I'm going to be throwing up my mouth listening to some of these players saying that they're so sad and they loved Erik and blah, blah, blah. And they just didn't perform, and let's see who the first players is to say, oh, it's their fault. It's not his fault. Well, if that's your thinking, you should have stepped up over a year ago, because you can clearly see which players are going to come out and say that, and you can probably name a couple of players that won't even say anything because they know it's their fault. But it's the right decision. Are they bringing in? I think you said they were going to appoint Ruud van Nistelrooy in the interim.
He's an interim head coach, supported by the current coaching team, while a permanent head coach is recruited.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. What's going to more than likely happen is here with Solskjaer, they're going to see how the next 3 or 4 games go before they make the decision of how long they're going to keep Ruud there. I don't think Van Nistelrooy is the answer in the long term, but I could be wrong. but I think it's a wise decision. Like Van Nistelrooy he's not new to coaching. He coached in the Dutch league. Taking the fact that he's a Manchester United legend, it was an easy decision for Ineos to actually replace him. And I think they had that in the back of their mind in the summer when they brought him back. And no one will convince me otherwise that wasn't a strategic move as well as a good coaching move. They just got two things out of one decision, and that was, well, if this does go pear-shaped, at least we have someone that will that can step in and someone that the fans appreciate and will support. So
yeah. It's been a weird ride. This is only a short one, by the way, maybe 20 minutes. Just while we react to the news again, Erik Ten Hag left his role as Manchester United men's first team manager, effectively sacked by the club. Although obviously the statement is not going to say that. While we were waiting to see while the injuries came back and everything like that, and everyone was, I think there were a lot of people giving him the benefit of the doubt because the injury crisis was so horrendous, and we never really had a full flavour of what Erik Ten Hag's strategy was, because it wasn't fair to assess that while so many players were out, and while those players who were out were so critical to the balance of the side, and we had such disparity last season in where we have to be fair. While he's lost his job for a reason, but there were massive mitigating circumstances with the disparity of some of the performances last season. That being that we let so many players go, and those players who initially went were players that other teams wanted, and then you're left with the players who other teams don't want. So when those players had to come in and they knew that they weren't wanted, and we started to try and find some kind of semblance of an identity, it was very difficult, and that was a very difficult thing for the manager to navigate. So to be able to do that and win 2 trophies is one thing. To be able to do that, win 2 trophies, and then like we said, the cup run was quite similar to Louis van Gaal's cup run. They had that sort of sense of like there's something building here. But you have to be able to build on that and not give in to the difficulty of it. We were talking earlier on about the chaos theory. It's like, is that something that you can plug into? Can you make that work for you, or do you become a victim of it? And I think this season, what we've seen as those players have come back and the balance has come back, is that he's very much a Van Gaal style manager, very autocratic, and that has been oil and water to United in the past. So the more that we've seen that, the more problematic that's become, the less enjoyable it's been to watch, the more structured. And you think that there's a structure there, and there was. I mean, a lot of people said they didn't see it. I mean, you could see it. It just wasn't very exciting. It didn't really grab you by the scruff of your neck. You didn't really feel excited about it, apart from the individuals, of course. The individuals with their individual moments. And there's been so much said about the different players, the usage of different players. Rashford's best position over that period of time, and then you do wonder: is it the player? Is it the management? Is it the setup? And the more evidence that we've had in the recent weeks of the players coming into the side, and the more difficult those performances have become to watch, the manager has less room for maneuver, really. When you see what that strategy is with the players available and it's not exciting and there's no massive improvement, then you lose the strength of your argument to support him, really. I mean, you support him on the basis that he's the manager of the team that you go and support and you go and watch every week, but on the basis of the evidence that you've seen in front of you, it was basically the cup run and the cup win. The cup wins, really, because he did win trophies in both of his seasons at United. That's going to be the evidence that's used from Ten Hag's side as they support, is the job that he did there. What of the good is there then we've seen? Because, I mean, the first thing is that it was too much like Van Gaal, right? The style of football was too much from the Van Gaal school of... especially in the Spurs game, we saw it horrendously where the players were static and the goals that we conceded they seemed to be a systemic problem. But what of the good? Because obviously everyone's going to be talking critical, and we've still got time to talk about the critical aspects of it. But what of the good that we've seen of Ten Hag? What has he contributed that we think has been worthwhile?
I mean, obviously the two trophy wins, the FA Cup one as well. Last season was obviously massive plus points. Especially in a season that was decimated by injuries, and we were playing one of the best teams on the planet, and he outsmarted them and he outplayed them tactically and aggressively. But it was few and far between, unfortunately. I'm not sure why we didn't go into the new season like that either, because he's shown that he in certain games he certainly can step up, but it just wasn't good enough over the past couple of years, and that's why he's lost his job. But the positives are, he's brought through it. He's brought through some really, really good and exciting youngsters that are the future of Manchester United. Man Utd, Garnacho, to name two, and then we spoke earlier on about the under-16s team that's possibly coming through as well. Ten Hag, and I said this earlier on, he hasn't bought bad. He really hasn't. I mean, there's a lot of the players that I really, really like that he's bought. It's just baffling at how he's not being able to get them to play. It really is. And I think Ruud van Nistelrooy is walking into a very, very good side. We earlier on in the season when we got beat by Brighton, and we should have never lost that Brighton game. And there was improvements, and there has been improvements in certain games, and more so than not. I definitely think there's a team there. There really is, and that's a huge positive for for Ten Hag. But he himself has not been able to get this team to play, and I've seen it. We've seen it down the years as well with other clubs where there's a good team there, but the manager just hasn't been able to get them to play, and then a new manager comes in, and all of a sudden it kicks on from there, and that's my hope. And then it gets lost in that chaos that new manager is the one that gets all the praise, when in fact you're thinking to yourself and you're looking at that team going, well, he didn't buy 80% of those players. He was just able to come in and make them play better than the previous manager. And that's the baffling part about coaching, is that, and we're in that situation right now. We don't have a bad team. We just like I said earlier on, there's a disconnect between the manager and the players. There's something in the middle there that's not being communicated properly. And Van Nistelrooy has taken over a very good side. He really is. And I really, obviously, we all hope he can do well and kick on from there. But the positives are obviously the two cup wins, the youth team players that he wasn't afraid to bring through. And he has bought well. He's just not been able to get this team to play. And ultimately, that's the sword you fall on. If you can't perform when you have all the right tools, you fall on that.
Yeah, Rory says, I'm not sure I'm excited by him being sacked, but that can change based on how the team differs in his absence. Do we suddenly start scoring a lot of goals, or is it more of the same? Johnny says, I feel giddy. I'll get on to feeling in a second. What of the bad, very quickly? He's been sacked for a reason. And first of all, the dreadful away record is one. The inability to navigate that chaos and make it work for you, is another. But I mean, it's a bit unfair. But the other thing is the disparity in the performances. Really, there was never any improvement. You don't feel convinced that we're any closer to Manchester City or Arsenal or Liverpool than we were when he started. Really, I don't feel like we are, and I feel like the players are there to say that there's definitely a chance. And on the one-off game like against City in the cup final, you said there's an argument for something to invest in, but that had to be something that you saw consistently, and we haven't seen that, and that is ultimately a managed thing. I mean, we've seen some of the worst results in United history under Ten Hag, unfortunately. We have some of the worst home performances that we've seen. Obviously 7-0 against Liverpool, which was appalling as well. The 3-0 against Liverpool this season. Games against Manchester City in the league where we just looked a mile off. How do you feel, Dave? I mean, look, anyone who's listening or watching, I mean, we're not going to be on here for too much longer, but if you want to have a chat about this, it's obviously something that affects the mood and everything. And I feel like, I don't feel particularly good about it. I don't feel particularly excited, but I was heartbroken when Ollie was sacked. It's not because I was invested that I thought he was going to turn it around, but I wanted it to work so much, and I had such a connection with him that I wanted it to succeed more, and he didn't. And he was sacked, and unjustifiably so at the end because of the results turned against him. But I remember when Mourinho was dismissed, I felt relieved that part was over. And I remember Van Gaal being sacked, and I remember thinking that shouldn't have happened in the way that it happened. And I remember Moyes being sacked and thinking that was it. It feels kind of similar to that there's an argument to say he could have given him more time, but really it was a weak argument. And I like Ten Hag. I think that I saw some good things and there were some good moments in there. And I felt like he had people had the daggers out from him from the start. There's a lot of persecution about the way that he was in terms of his personality, and I never really liked that. But
well, I mean, from day one, they criticized even the suit he arrived in for his first press conference. That's the unfortunate part, Wayne, about Manchester United is inevitably the person that walks through the door is instantly under pressure from the media because because of our success over the past couple of decades, we're always going to be cannon fodder, and we're going to be, an easy target. People live and breathe off bad results for Manchester United. Many journalists do. It's not good news for everyone else in Manchester United doing well.
Well, yeah, I know.
I'm not going to sit here and say I'm absolutely devastated that Ten Hag is gone, but I'm also not going to sit here and gloat and say I'm glad he's gone. I don't like to see any Manchester United manager getting sacked. I really, really don't. But all I hung on right till the end because I thought it was, I had my reasons earlier on, as I explained.
Yeah.
But with Ten Hag, it's just it's that thing where it's like this is going to happen, and the longer we prolong this, the worse it's going to get. Because I think now is the right time to do it. And as I said, I've said this 2 or 3 times. I go back to the Van Gaal time. It was 3 or 4 months too late for him.
Yeah. Oran says could get a lot worse. Most big changes missed this year with the current coaches involved since day one of pre-season. Where do we go now? Xavi, Potter, former manager. Keane was and always will be right. Leopards don't change their spots. Yeah, but I mean,
but most of that team is gone. Most of that team that Keane was talking about in regard to. It was the Lingards, the Pogbas, the Memphis Depays, all these guys that really just didn't. Football wasn't their focus. It really wasn't. I don't think any of these players, and we said this earlier on. I don't think any of these players have fallen out with Ten Hag. I don't think he lost the dressing room. They just couldn't. It was water and oil. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It just
a philosophy that just hasn't worked at United before. You could even say, Van Gaal, Dave Sexton. It's the same brand of football, really, and it didn't work this time around. You hoped that there's something in there, there's more liberation in that, there's more license to play. But I mean, even when there was license, it looked uninstructional. It looked like it was accidental and not by design. And United needed that. They've looked for too long to be a team out that play accidentally and not by design. Dan says Manchester United manager, now the toughest job in football. I think it has been for a long time, to be honest. And that leads us on, Dave. I mean, we were talking in the podcast this morning, the scheduled pod, where we were saying, this is a massive decision because Ineos have got to get it right, and they've bit the bullet. They've gone, I feel. I'm not going to say I feel excited. I feel a little bit relieved that this pot's over because I'd like I said, I will never advocate for a manager changing, and it's not hindsight, saying the right decision, blah blah blah. Because I don't mean that. I just mean kind of relieved because I couldn't see what we would invest in the hope going forward. I think that point had gone, and obviously they think the same thing as well. But now Van Nistelrooy is very clear in the statement. Is interim head coach. They are looking for a permanent head coach. So I don't think we're going to see an Ole situation, but barring some kind of miracle. Who do they go for? I mean, I'm not, there are different names. Is there anyone out there? I mean, because people will say, Guardiola, and they'll say Klopp turned us down because it was Disneyland. It's going to be difficult to bring him in with his ex-Liverpool ties, but United is still a name in the world of football where they should be going for the best in class. So who's best in class for you that you can say, you can't guarantee there'll be success, but who's best in class that you will feel really confident about coming in? Is it, you can't just go Carlo Ancelotti. So if I presume he's going to be a first choice anyway, who's your second choice?
I mean, why not Carlo Ancelotti? Why not? He's at Real. Well, he got absolutely smashed the weekend. Maybe his time at Real is up, and and he has a point to prove again in the Premier League. I would go all out next summer and get Carlo Ancelotti as my first choice.
Summer, you would wait to the summer though. You think?
I don't think so. You're not going to get any decent managers between now and the end of the season. You're just not. The clubs are too early in a cycle that they're not going to be able to give up. But then again, money talks, and attitudes change when money gets thrown around. But we don't seem to have a lot of it these days. So it's going to be difficult for them to get anyone in between now and then. It really is. I'm just so glad Pochettino took that US job. I really am, because he would have been on the short list. The problem that we have now is Gareth Southgate, Graham Potter, all these guys are floating around. If Ineos are going to be that decisive and strong by getting rid of Ten Hag, you can't go for either of them that have zero track record. Okay, you really can't. You gotta go and get a manager that can handle big time players and that can handle the current Premier League struggles that we have against these big teams. I would have never said Diego Simeone a couple of years ago, but you can't not ignore him. I don't think his brand of football is great, but our brand of football for the past 6, 7, 8 years has been horrendous. We need stability. We need to start, proving that we can win. And I think he would be very hard to dislodge from Atletico Madrid. But I say this, all the time, is that money talks with players and managers. Why can't we break the mold about going after a manager that's currently employed and trying to pay big money for him? Why not? I mean, records are there to be broken. Managers are also willing to come if the price is right. Most 99% of players and managers have loyalty to one thing, and that's how much money they can get. Yeah. And that's what would be the driving force here. But I don't think Klopp is an option. It would be heartbreaking to see him come in. It really would.
I was just saying, I was thinking the two best in class.
No. You can't ignore Pep and Klopp, but as much as the game has gone away from us as supporters over the past couple of decades, that would be the final nail in the coffin. That really would. That Manchester United would go off and appoint Jurgen Klopp as their manager. It would be absolutely. If they appointed Pep Guardiola, I don't think it wouldn't hurt as much, because Man City, as much as they want to be rivals, they're not. They're really not. So I've named two. I don't think, my fear with Ruud van Nistelrooy is the same fear I had with Solskjaer. Solskjaer came out and won the first 8 of his 9 games or something. Everyone thought was great. Rio Ferdinand was dancing around like a clown on the TV saying, give him a contract, give him a contract. We gave him a contract and it all went to shit after that. For the most part, we had some really, really great days with Ollie and probably played our best football since, Fergie. And that was a beautiful period for me, even though in the end I knew the time was up. But there is a lot of good managers out there. For me, I've always been a Carlo Ancelotti fan, and Rory says in the comments here, is Ancelotti a long-term appointment or a here and now? We have to move on from a 26-year manager. There was an article, and I should have said that was on Twitter earlier on, and it showed the amount of managers all the top clubs have had since Ferguson got sacked, and the amount of trophies that they've won with all those managers. Unfortunately, managers are a 2 to 3 year cycle now. Liverpool and City, a little bit different, because with Liverpool, they were building. They were building and building, and inevitably, Klopp quit in the end because managers don't hang around. Guardiola, same thing, the money there. It's a rarity now that managers stay that long. It really is. I probably wouldn't have said this 7, 8, 9 years ago about we shouldn't be chopping and changing. But here we are 8, 9 years later, and we are chopping and changing. We laughed at other clubs doing it like Chelsea, but Chelsea, their manager, especially under Abramovich, he was ruthless. He really was. He sacked Ancelotti after winning a bunch of trophies. He sacked European Cup winners or Champions League, whatever you want to call it, after winning it the following season. That's just football now. We can't be holding on to the past of let's keep a manager for 10 years and hopefully we win a couple of cup games. Can't be doing that anymore. That's the way football has gone. Do I like it? No, hate it. There has to be stability. But the stability nowadays is a 2 to 3 year, maybe 4 year cycle with most managers. And as a top club, we have to buy into that if we want to get back to the top table, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for this emergency podcast. Thanks. Still got in over 1,000 of you watching, so incredible. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate that. Erik Ten Hag has left his role as Manchester United's men's first team manager, say the club. Erik was appointed in April 2022, led the club to 2 domestic trophies, winning the Carabao Cup in 23 and FA Cup in 2024. We are grateful to Erik for everything he's done during his time with us and wish him well for the future. Ruud van Nistelrooy will take charge of the team as interim head coach, supported by the current coaching team, whilst the permanent head coach is recruited. There'll be more reaction from us throughout the week, I'm sure. Really appreciate you checking in with us both times this morning. Really appreciate it. Unsettling time for United. Joining the conversation with us on Twitter. We'll be around to have chats with people about it. Hope everyone's doing well. I know football affects the mood, right? I was already raging after that penalty decision yesterday, but it's a very difficult time when there's change at your football club. So keep your heads up, guys. We'll be around to have a chat if anyone wants to have a conversation about it. Up the Reds, just another day in the history of Manchester United. The most storied history in world football gets another chapter. Thanks, Erik, for the memories. There were some good ones in there. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. We move on. Time to go United. There you go.